Hey guys, tonight we are stepping straight into the furnace of ancient Egypt. Imagine opening your eyes, not to your cozy bedroom, but to a desert sun so bright it feels like it has drilled straight through your skull. You are not in your soft mattress with a fan humming nearby. Instead, your back presses against packed sand, your ears fill with the buzz of flies, and when you sit up, you realize you are lying in the shadow of something enormous and unfinished, a pyramid, still rising, block by backbreaking block. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, drop a comment with your location and your local time. I love seeing this weird little global campfire we've built together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your throat is already dried before you even sit upright. The first sensation is the grit of sand in your teeth, the second is the stabbing brightness, and the third is the sound, an endless chorus of men grunting, ropes straining, wood creaking, and the faint whip crack that makes everyone jump a little faster. You are not dreaming, you are a worker on Egypt's pyramid, and the day has already started without you. The first thing that hits you is the heat. It is not even noon, yet the sun already feels like a personal enemy. Egyptian builders, real ones, did not work in plush shade. They worked from sunrise to sunset, with only brief pauses. Historians still argue whether the bulk of pyramid workers were conscripted peasants during the Nile's flood season or year-round specialists. But either way, here you are, lumped in with them. You rub your eyes and notice your clothes. They are not modern cotton pajamas but a simple linen kilt, rough against the skin, stiff with sweat. Your skin already tingles with the threat of sunburn, and you remember reading somewhere that ancient Egyptians used a mixture of animal fat and even crocodile dung as a sort of sunscreen. You check your arms, half hoping someone has smeared you with it. No luck. You are on your own. Nearby, workers shuffle into loose lines, preparing for the morning meal. You stumble after them, legs still stiff, and realize that you are surrounded by hundreds of men, all sun-darkened, lean, and hard-muscled. A few glance at you as if sensing you do not belong, but no one speaks up. In the blur of dust and linen skirts, you blend in well enough. The food is laid out simply, baskets of coarse flatbread, onions so sharp they sting your nose, and jars of beer that is more porridge than liquid. Egyptian beer was thick, sweet, and low in alcohol, a worker's fuel, not a party drink. You pick up a chunk of bread, nearly crack a tooth on its grit, and wonder how many tiny pebbles the millstones let slip in. You chew anyway, washing it down with a gulp of beer that tastes like sour oatmeal. Delicious, right? As you eat, the camp comes alive with motion. Overseers bark instructions, their voices sharp as bronze knives. A line of men prepares to haul ropes, others collect copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones for quarrying. Somewhere a scribe squats with a wooden tablet, recording tallies of workers, tools, and rations. Ancient Egyptians loved paperwork almost as much as they loved gods. One man beside you, missing 2 front teeth, grins and offers you an onion half. You accept, realizing this is not just a snack, it is a survival tool. Onions and garlic were believed to strengthen endurance, and they were practically medicine on the worksite. There is even a quirky tidbit about garlic being used as part of worker wages. Imagine your boss handing you garlic instead of a paycheck. Maybe not so bad if the alternative is starving. The meal is short. Soon a conch shell blows, echoing across the desert like a low trumpet, and everyone begins to rise. You brush sand from your legs, take a last gulp of gritty beer, and follow the mass of bodies moving toward the quarry path. As you trudge, you catch sight of the pyramid itself. From up close, it does not look like the smooth postcard monument you know from history books. It is a giant, stepped mountain of pale stone, raw edges showing, scaffolding clinging to its sides like spider legs. The air around it shimmers with heat, and you swear the thing almost breathes. Somewhere, priests are probably murmuring blessings for the king whose soul will one day soar through the stars because of this monument. You are just here to haul rocks. A supervisor passes by on a small donkey, holding a stick, his eyes sharp for slackers. You try to look busy even though you are just walking. He glances at you but keeps going, which is a relief. You have no idea how to explain yourself. Your sandals kick up puffs of fine dust, coating your calves until they look ghostly pale. Ahead, the quarry yawns like a wound in the desert. You feel your stomach sink as you realize that breakfast was not fuel for a leisurely day. It was just enough to keep you alive through hours of back-breaking labor. By now, sweat is already running down your back. And it is only the start. You can almost hear your modern self whispering, "You probably won't survive this." And honestly, your modern self is right. Your feet crunch along the path as the crew winds toward the quarry, the dust turning the world a permanent shade of beige. The sun climbs higher, and so do your regrets. You try to guess the time, maybe mid-morning? But here, time isn't tracked by a clock. It's tracked by how much your back hurts, how dry your throat is, and how far away the shade looks. You pass the edge of a cliff where a rough ramp leads downward into a pit gouged deep into the bedrock. This is not just a quarry, it's a scar carved by centuries of labor, and it still isn't done bleeding stone. Inside the pit, the sound changes. It's cooler here, yes, but the noise hits different. Dozens of hammers tapping in irregular rhythms, like a broken orchestra. You see teams of men squatting next to blocks of limestone, chipping away with copper chisels and black pounding stones made of dolerite. You remember a historical fact. The Great Pyramid alone required around 2.5 million blocks of stone. Not bricks, blocks. Some of them as heavy as a small car. You are handed a chisel and pointed toward a half-cut block. It's warm to the touch, stone that has soaked in centuries of sunlight. You crouch beside it, mimicking the man next to you, who holds the chisel like it's an extension of his own hand. With a flat rock in your other hand, you strike it once. The vibration zings up your forearm. You try again. And again. You're too slow. The man next to you clicks his tongue and shows you the rhythm, short, even taps, like someone knocking politely on a door that doesn't want to open. Hours pass in a blur of tapping and dust. The chisel dulls fast. Copper isn't made for this kind of punishment, which is why sharpening stations are set up nearby, with men grinding edges back to life on slabs of sandstone. You're sent there more than once, and each time, your hands shake a little more from the effort. The limestone is softer than granite, which is a small mercy. Still, your hands are starting to blister. Your thighs burn from crouching. Someone passes you a gourd of beer, and you drink deeply even though it's warm and full of little floating things. The beer's not here to refresh, it's here to hydrate and sedate. Enough of it, and you won't care about the pain. The overseer walks the rows, a whip coiled loosely in one hand, not used often, but the threat of it hangs heavy in the air. Historians still debate how brutal the discipline was. Some claim pyramid workers were treated relatively well, fed, housed, even given medical care. Others argue that cruelty was the grease that kept the stones moving. You suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. Good treatment if you're strong, pain if you fall behind. Lunch is a blur, another hunk of bread, maybe some dried dates if you're lucky, and more beer. Then it's back to the quarry. At one point, a man near you hits a hidden crack in the stone. The block splits too soon and too shallow. A low groan escapes him, and the overseer is instantly there, scowling. The man offers a half bow, palms raised in apology. The damaged block is pushed aside. Wasted labor, wasted time. You feel your stomach turn. That could have been you. As the afternoon sun begins to slide toward the west, your team is told to prepare a block for transport. This one is massive, perhaps 1.5 tons. And you're expected to help move it. First comes the undercutting, Workers slip wooden wedges beneath the stone and hammer them deeper, pouring in water so the wood expands and cracks the block free. It's a clever trick, older than most religions. When the block finally shifts, it makes a sound like distant thunder. You flinch, thinking it's about to roll and crush someone. But everyone moves in perfect coordination. Ropes are looped, sledges are placed, and the desert becomes a machine. Here's a quirky tidbit. The workers pour water in front of the sled to reduce friction. Modern researchers recreated this trick and found it actually works. Wet sand makes it easier to pull a sledge. Ancient physics, no math degree required. You wrap your hands around the rope. It's rough, made of braided papyrus or palm fiber, and it bites into your already raw palms. A shout goes up. You pull. Everyone pulls. The block inches forward, then settles. Again. And again. Your feet slip. Your back screams. And then something odd happens. You start to fall into the rhythm of it. The call of the foreman. The grunt of the men. The grind of the sled. Your modern brain fades into the motion. The block moves, slow but steady. You glance sideways and see the pyramid rising in the distance. It still looks impossibly huge. You wonder if anyone here believes it will ever be done. Or if it even matters. At the top of the quarry path, the block is parked for the night. You collapse in the shade of a wall, barely able to lift your arms. Your kilt is soaked through with sweat. You smell like a salad left in the sun. Someone laughs nearby, dry and raspy, but honest. You realize that for all the pain, there's a strange sense of shared purpose. You are building something that will outlive every single person here, including yourself. A scribe approaches with a wax board and stylus, tallying the number of blocks carved today. He doesn't speak, just counts, scratches, moves on. Every block is a number. Every number is a step closer to immortality. But right now, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about how good it will feel to lie down, if your legs still remember how. By the time you rise again, the sun is lower in the sky, but it's still far from cool. You are led with a new group, not back toward the sleeping tents or cooking fires, but onward, following a sandy path worn smooth by thousands of trudging feet. The crowd of workers grows quieter. You're heading to the staging grounds near the construction site. And, judging by the grunts and the number of ropes, your job is to help drag one of the quarry-cut blocks all the way to the pyramid's base. You spot it ahead, a stone cube the size of a dining table, strapped down tight to a wooden sledge. The wood creaks in the dry heat. The ropes are coiled like snakes on the sand, waiting for hands. You join the line without needing to be told. Your arms ache before you even begin. A horn sounds once, then twice. Then the command, "Pull!" The rope bites. Your heels dig into the sand, slipping slightly with each step. Dozens of men beside you lean forward, like wind-blown trees, all trying not to fall. The block groans forward inch by inch, leaving gouged tracks in the dry earth behind it. Sand flies. Sweat pours. No one speaks, only the rhythmic grunting keeps you in sync. One man slips. The overseer rushes forward with a stick, not to strike, but to shout. Up! Up! The worker staggers back into place. No punishment this time. It's more efficient to yell than to injure, though that stick stays very visible. You wonder, as the block grinds forward, how many men were crushed under these stones across centuries. Historians still argue about the number of deaths involved in pyramid construction. Some say thousands, others insist the work was careful, controlled, and surprisingly humane. You're starting to see both sides. Accidents happen, yes, but the system itself, harsh as it is, runs on coordination. A broken body slows everything. You pass a group of women and children near the path, possibly family members of workers, or maybe servants bringing water. One child hands you a wet rag. You take it without thinking and press it to your neck. It feels like a blessing. A very soggy, sandy blessing. Up ahead, a group of men use long poles to clear rocks and fill soft patches of sand with reeds. It's an improvised road crew, ensuring the sled doesn't tip. You catch another quirky fact floating into your brain. Egyptologists once found depictions of this exact process on the tomb walls of Jehuti-Hotep, a noble who oversaw massive hauling operations. The art even shows a man pouring water ahead of the sled, just like you saw earlier. By now, your legs are jelly. The pyramid is closer, and the shadows it casts stretch long across the ground like fingers. Its base is enormous, each side longer than 2 football fields. You could walk 10 minutes and still be in its shadow. As the sled reaches the designated drop site, ropes go slack, and workers slump. You do the same, flopping to the sand and watching clouds of dust swirl overhead. A man with a reed stylus walks past, tapping his board with a quick click for each successful delivery. You hear the scratch of wood on wax. Another block accounted for. Another breathless evening earned. But you're not done yet. The next team takes over, lifting the blocks slightly using pry bars and stones, placing thick wooden rollers underneath. You help steady the massive weight as it rises half a foot, praying the balance holds. Even one wrong tilt, and that thing could snap your spine like dry papyrus. Once the block is settled, a chant begins. It starts low, like a hum, then grows into a deep, throaty rhythm. Hoo! 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 With each beat, the block is rolled forward a few feet onto a mud ramp. You don't sing, you gasp. But somehow the collective voice pulls you forward. You glance up the pyramid's slope. The higher tiers are still under construction, stacked like a giant staircase into the sky. Wooden scaffolding clings to the sides. Workers look like ants at the top. And then, finally, you see it, the tip of a golden triangle gleaming in the late sun. The capstone. Or at least, the placeholder for it. That's where you're all headed someday. Another open scholarly debate pops into your mind. How exactly did the Egyptians lift such massive stones to the upper levels? Ramps? Internal spirals? Giant cranes made of wishful thinking? No one really knows. Theories shift like sand in the wind. But right now, you're not building theories. You're building stairs with your back. As twilight settles, the day's final effort begins, moving the newly delivered block into its row. It's not lifted, it's pushed, coaxed, adjusted, and finally levered into place. 1 centimeter at a time. And when it locks in, perfect fit, smooth surface, you feel a strange pride. Like you've slotted one more puzzle piece into the afterlife. Someone nearby says a short prayer. Not loud. Just habit. Not all workers were Egyptian, some came from foreign lands, captured or hired. But many believed in Ma'at, the principle of cosmic balance. And building this pyramid? That was Ma'at. Order from chaos. Stone by stone. You finally get to sit, not just flop, and someone passes you a cloth bundle. Inside, leftover bread, garlic, maybe a dried figure. You eat slowly, watching the sky turn violet. Stars emerge one by one. The desert wind picks up, and for the first time all day, your skin feels cool. You look up at the pyramid, now glowing faintly in the starlight. A jagged mountain of effort, lit by moonshine and human sweat. You want to sleep. Your bones demand it. But instead, you're sent toward the tent camps. You pass by other crews setting up small fires. Jokes float in the air. So does the scent of roasting meat. Maybe goat. Maybe rat? You're too tired to care. The wind carries a grainy layer of dust into your eyes. You don't bother wiping it. That would take energy. Energy you no longer possess. One final image burns in your brain before you reach the tents. A small child stacking rocks nearby, imitating the men. His pyramid is 5 stones tall. and he grins like he built the world. You smile back, weakly, and keep walking. The tents aren't much. Just rows of rough linen canopies stretched between poles, staked down against desert winds that don't care about your comfort. You duck into one, collapse onto a mat stuffed with straw, and let your bones try to rearrange themselves into something vaguely human again. Sleep doesn't come immediately. Your body is tired in the way that aches down into the marrow, but your mind is racing. You've been yanked out of your own time and dropped into the belly of a construction project that's older than most religions. Your hands are cracked. Your back throbs. Your skin smells like salt and dust and someone else's garlic breath. And yet, oddly, you're still alive. Outside the tent, voices murmur in low tones. You catch phrases in ancient Egyptian, or what your brain now magically understands as Egyptian, because dream logic. Someone is complaining about the overseer's math. Someone else is whispering about a worker who dropped a chisel and cut his own foot. Then someone sings, low and slow, a melody that loops like a lullaby. But you can't sleep yet. Because morning always comes faster than you think. At dawn, you are woken not by an alarm clock, but by the sound of leather sandals slapping hard-packed earth and a short bark. Up! A servant, possibly 12 years old, pulls aside the tent flap and lets in a blade of light sharp enough to shave with. No one protests. Grumbling, yes. But protest? That would take energy. You're herded toward the worksite again, but today's path forks off to a new area, the lower construction ramps near the base of the pyramid. You're told you'll be helping with the fine placement. That sounds promising. Maybe lighter lifting? Smarter work? Nope. You arrive to find stacks of limestone blocks waiting to be maneuvered with an absurdly primitive toolkit. Levers, pulleys, logs, and gravity. These stones weigh thousands of pounds each, and there's not a forklift in sight. The process is brutally clever. First, teams position thick wooden rollers under the stone. Then, long poles are wedged under the front edge and used as levers to nudge the block forward. With each shove, the rollers underneath are pulled out from the back and quickly repositioned at the front, like some giant stone version of crawling on marbles. It's slow. Painfully slow. But it works. Eventually the block reaches a sloped mud brick ramp that leads upward, just a few degrees incline, but that's enough to make you question the universe. The sled is winched up by teams on either side using ropes wrapped around wooden bollards. You're put on the front side this time, helping guide the motion with planks and wedges. And here's the part that makes your muscles weep. Once the block's in position on the ramp, someone has to keep it from rolling backward. That someone is you. Along with two other exhausted souls, you brace a thick beam of wood against the sled's bottom and plant your feet. The block slips an inch. Your heart stops. But the crew adjusts. You exhale. Then it moves forward again. Repeat. Repeat. One misstep, and this chunk of limestone will turn you into a very unflattering smear in the historical record. You pass a patch of carved graffiti in the mud brick wall next to the ramp, little doodles of animals, boats, stick figures holding what might be beer mugs. Workers leaving their mark. A fringe theory suggests some pyramid blocks have names or jokes etched into them, invisible now but hidden beneath plaster. If true, it means you're not just building for the pharaoh. You're building for the next poor soul who finds your joke in 3,000 years. Someone calls break. You collapse onto a pile of rags and drink from a communal jar of beer. It's warm and flat. Still the best thing you've tasted today. And then, just before the break ends, something wonderful happens. You're invited to see the trick. At first you think it's a joke. But a small group of elite workers, probably stone fitters or architects, motion for a few of you to follow them behind the pyramid's southern ramp. There, hidden in the shade of a half-finished platform, lies an odd contraption, a long wooden lever with weights on one end and a narrow copper point on the other. One man steps forward, placing the tip against a block. He then slowly adjusts it until a beam of sunlight hits a specific carved groove. The others nod. Adjustments are made. It's an alignment test. You're watching something close to primitive surveying, sun-based calibration to make sure the entire structure remains aligned with the cardinal directions. Historians still argue how the Egyptians managed such precise orientation for the pyramids. Theories range from sight lines using the North Star to shadow-based sundials. Whatever the truth, you just witnessed something sacred, measuring without measuring tape. The fitter turns to you and grins. Straight as Ra's light, he says. You nod, not entirely sure what that means, but you clap anyway. Back at the ramp, the work resumes. You join a group pushing blocks into final position. This is the fine placement, fitting each stone like it's the last brick in the world's angriest Lego set. The team leader uses a plumb bob, chalk lines, and a practiced eye to guide each shove. If a corner doesn't align, it's not shaved, it's lifted and rotated. Again and again. You are not an engineer. But by the time your third block is locked into place, you feel like a god of geometry. That pride lasts right until your back spasms and drops you flat. Someone laughs, then hands you a bag of heated sand. You lie there, face in the dirt, and mumble thanks. The sun finally begins to dip low again. Your shift ends. You limp back toward camp. One man beside you mutters, "1 stone today. 1 million left." You're too tired to joke, so you just grunt. But deep inside, you know something now. The pyramid is not a miracle. It's just stubbornness stacked higher than anyone thought possible. The day starts with the same sun, the same sandals slapping the dirt, and the same bone-deep soreness that no amount of sleep can cure. But this morning, something is different. You're not going to the quarry, or the base ramp, or even near the giant blocks. You've been reassigned to the ramp crew. At first, you think this might be easier work. Maybe it even sounds fun. A change of pace. Something new. No. Ramp duty is its own special flavor of suffering. You arrive to find an enormous slope of packed earth, rising at a shallow angle from the desert floor to nearly halfway up the pyramid. It's flanked by retaining walls made from limestone chips, crumbling bricks, and what looks suspiciously like recycled construction waste. This is the superhighway of the pyramid project, the place where blocks are hauled up to the next level. But ramps don't build themselves. They need constant maintenance. And today, you're the maintenance. You are handed a wicker basket and a wooden trowel and told to help shore up the slope's edge. Cracks have formed overnight, probably from the previous day's traffic of stone sledges, and loose gravel threatens to become a deadly slide underfoot. You and your team spread mud mixed with straw across the gaps, then pound it down with stone mallets until it hardens into place. The desert wind whips dust into your nose and eyes. You blink through tears and keep working. A man nearby slips and almost tumbles. Someone grabs his arm just in time. Another reminder, the ramp may not look dangerous, but it's one bad step from becoming a toboggan run of doom, with you as the sled. The sun climbs. Shadows shrink. Your body starts baking again. Somewhere up on the ramp, a crew hauls a new block skyward, chanting rhythmically. You pause to watch. The block glides slowly forward on its sled, guided by ropes, sweat, and desperation. You can see the coordination. Dozens of workers pulling in sync, overseers shouting pace, assistants tossing water onto the ramp to reduce drag. You catch a quirky detail. Someone has rubbed pig fat on the sled runners. It's slippery, messy, and very effective. One of those strange techniques that doesn't show up in textbooks but probably saved thousands of hours of labor. Below the ramp, 2 oxen pull a cart stacked with bricks, their hooves carefully navigating the slope's lower ledge. A boy leads them, whispering to the animals like they're sacred pets. He taps their flanks with a long reed, never striking, just guiding. The oxen blink lazily and move on. You envy them deeply. As midday approaches, the smell of something sweet wafts down from a campfire, dates roasting with honey. A festival? No. Just a cook making lunch for the architect's tent. You and your fellow workers get bread, beer, and, if the gods are kind, a pickled radish. You eat crouched in the shade of a retaining wall. The beer is warmer today. The bread is drier. Still, you devour it like a banquet. The man next to you shares a strip of dried fish, and you almost cry with gratitude. You ask him how long he's worked here. He says, "Since my father died on level 30. You're not sure what to say to that, so you nod and chew. After lunch, your crew is moved to the lever stations. These are small wooden platforms set up along the edge of the ramp, each with long beams used to nudge blocks sideways into final alignment. You're assigned to a team adjusting a crooked slab that somehow rotated a few degrees during its ascent. With wooden poles and small rock wedges, you all strain against the block's stubborn bulk, moving it inch by inch until the angle matches its neighbors. There's a special kind of frustration that comes from fighting stone. It doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about precision. It moves when it wants, and only if you're very convincing. Eventually, the block clicks into place with a soft thud. The foreman nods. You all step back, panting. One man kisses the block like it's a child. Another mutters something under his breath, probably a blessing. Or a threat. Then the lever platform breaks. Not all the way. But one of the support beams snaps with a sharp crack, and suddenly you're all scrambling backward. No one's hurt, but it takes an hour to fix. The delay costs momentum. The foreman is furious. It's a reminder that this whole operation, despite its seeming grandeur, is held together by improvisation and prayer. You think of the stories you once read about aliens building the pyramids, and now you want to laugh and cry at the same time. Aliens wouldn't have used so much mud. Later that afternoon, you're moved again, this time to help with what looks like painting. But it's not paint. It's marking powder made of red ochre, used to trace alignment lines across newly placed blocks. A scribe shows you how to pull a taut string soaked in pigment, then snap it against the stone, leaving a straight line of red dust. It's oddly satisfying. Clean. Precise. Almost artistic. For a few moments, you forget your blisters and just enjoy the motion. Line. Snap. Line. Snap. You learn that this method, called snap lines, is one of the reasons the pyramids have such clean geometry. Historians still marvel at the precision. But now you see the secret. It's not magic. It's men with strings and dust and very sore wrists. As the sun tilts westward, your shift ends. You descend the ramp in silence, every step sending little flares of pain through your thighs. You pass a group of young workers sweeping the ramp with bundles of reeds like human brooms. Their faces are streaked with dust and laughter. One of them sings a silly song about a lazy stone that didn't want to climb. You can't help but smile. At camp, you wash your hands in a basin of gray water. It's gritty and smells faintly of copper. But it's better than nothing. You collapse onto your mat and stare at the ceiling of the tent, which is stitched with patterns you hadn't noticed before. Little stars, waves, and animal shapes sewn into the linen. Above you, the pyramid looms in the twilight. Still incomplete. Still impossibly large. And yet, block by block it grows. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. You wake before the sun. Not because someone yells. Not because the boy with the sandals kicks your tent pole. But because your body is now permanently set to pyramid o'clock. Your bones creak like wood that's been soaked, dried, and beaten for a few centuries. Your muscles no longer scream, they just whisper rude things in a language your brain no longer translates. You stretch under your linen sheet and stare at the rising glow in the east. Another day. Another block. Another chance not to get flattened. Today, the task is slightly different. Instead of hauling or ramp work, you're assigned to the counter crew. The name sounds bureaucratic, almost boring. You imagine a desk, maybe a tablet, possibly even a shade umbrella. Nope. You're a human receipt. Your job is to count and confirm how many blocks, tools, and rations move in and out of a given sector, under the watchful eye of a scribe and the not-so-watchful eye of a half-blind overseer whose entire personality seems to be angry squint. You're handed a wooden tally board with notches already cut into it. The scribe beside you uses a thin brush and a slurry of ink made from soot, gum, and water. His hands are steady. His eyes never blink. You suspect he was born inside a clay tablet. Your first assignment: count the stone blocks arriving from the quarry. They come in slow caravans, each sled groaning with weight. You scratch one mark for each successful delivery. Easy. But then it gets complicated. Some blocks are chipped. Some are smaller than standard. Some look like they've been reused, maybe from an earlier structure. You raise your hand to ask, but the scribe grunts. Still counts. So you count. Meanwhile, the overseer walks the line, checking the food rations. Workers receive roughly 4 loaves of bread and about 2 jars of beer per day, give or take. Garlic and onions are extra, and only if someone didn't steal them. You help confirm each distribution, though no one seems to care if the counts are exact. The idea is to give the illusion of order, not actual precision. You notice a man slip an extra loaf into his tunic. The scribe doesn't even flinch. You glance at him. Better he eats than dies, he mutters. Bread is cheap. Time isn't. You write that down mentally. You don't know why. It just sounds true. Later you're asked to count tools. Copper chisels are especially valuable. They're soft, blunt quickly, and have to be resharpened constantly. Each is supposed to be signed out and signed back in. That's the idea. In reality, half the chisels are passed from hand to hand like gossip, and a third are already lost somewhere between the quarry and the cook tent. You jot marks anyway, trying not to look suspicious. Then comes the unpleasant task: tallying injuries. At a shaded table beneath a ragged awning, a medic wraps linen strips around a man's foot. You're handed a tablet with small illustrations, stick figures with various body parts highlighted. You point at the foot icon. The medic nods. One more for the list. Historians still argue whether ancient pyramid workers had access to formal medical care. You're here now, and the answer seems to be yes, but don't expect a miracle. The medicine kit contains honey, willow bark, some herbs, and a lot of hope. But for cuts, bruises, heat exhaustion, and smashed toes? It works surprisingly well. You watch a man's arm get set using 2 flat sticks, bound tightly with cloth. He doesn't scream. You do. Internally. Later, you're taken to the tally tent. Inside, scribes sit cross-legged in rows, each with a palette, brush, and papyrus scroll. The tent smells like ink, sweat, and silent judgment. These are the ones who track every stone, every wedge, every basket of sand moved from here to there. You realize something quietly terrifying. This place runs not on brute force, but on math. Every worker is accounted for. Every load of gravel weighed. Every slip-up logged. Your own presence is now a row in someone's column. You glance at a scroll beside you. It's filled with tiny pictographs, numbers, symbols, signs. And there, nestled among them, is a doodle. A cat. Someone's pet? A deity? Or just the world's oldest boredom sketch? You nudge the scribe. He shrugs. Bought at watches, he says. That's comforting. Sort of. In the afternoon, the tone shifts. A group of officials arrives, carried in small sedan chairs with fans swaying above them. They're priests, judging by the kohl around their eyes and the amulets around their necks. One holds a carved staff topped with the head of a falcon. They're here for inspection. The scribes stiffen. You're told to stand back. The priests pass slowly, murmuring among themselves. One points at the alignment line of a block near the base and frowns. Another flicks dust off a chisel like it personally offended him. The overseer bows so low you fear his back will never recover. After a long silence, the lead priest simply nods. That's it. That's the whole inspection. The pyramid gets to keep existing. You breathe again. As evening falls, you're released early. Probably because the tally was finished or because someone noticed you can barely keep your eyes open. You wander the edges of the worksite, passing rows of tents, stacks of lumber, piles of chisels. A dog trots by, tail wagging. Someone calls it Khufu. You hope that's a joke. At the edge of camp, you watch the sun dip behind the Nile. The sky turns 100 shades of peach and gold. Workers filter back in loose groups, joking, limping, carrying their tools like old friends. You hear snatches of songs, some funny, some strange. One man plays a flute carved from bone. The notes drift on the wind, soft and ancient. You close your eyes. The pyramid looms behind you, bigger than belief, and yet somehow, just a stack of numbers, tallied by men with soot and patience. Today begins with chanting. Low, rhythmic, ancient. You blink awake to find the camp unusually quiet. No shouting overseers, no conch shell calls, no creaking sledges being pulled across the dirt. The usual chaos has paused. Something is different. You follow the others toward the east side of the camp, where a small stone altar has been erected just outside the construction site. It's not grand, just a flat platform, a few incense pots, and a carved falcon perched on a wooden staff. But the smell of burning myrrh tells you, this morning belongs to the gods. The foreman stands beside a temple priest, both in clean linen robes. The priest's face is painted, the kohl around his eyes exaggerated and sharp. He looks far too elegant to survive 10 minutes hauling limestone, but today, he doesn't have to. He raises his arms. Silence falls. And then, slowly, deliberately, he begins to intone a prayer to Ta, the god of craftsmen and builders. His voice rises and falls like a wave, and though you don't understand every word, you feel it. It vibrates in your chest like the beat of a drum too deep to hear. You glance at the workers around you. Heads are bowed. Hands are crossed over hearts. Some mouths move in unison, lips forming sounds passed down from fathers and grandfathers. You follow their lead. When the prayer ends, the priest walks a circle around the group, tossing pinches of natron salt into the sand. A blessing of purity. He stops in front of a man with a crooked back and presses a palm to his chest. The man weeps. And just like that, the workday begins again. You've been assigned to the charms team. That sounds ridiculous. It is a little ridiculous. But in this world, charms are serious business. You're brought to a small tent filled with curious objects, tiny statues, braided cords, scarabs, eye-shaped amulets, and little linen pouches filled with herbs. A woman, not a worker, but a healer or spiritualist, explains that many of the laborers wear or carry these items for protection. They aren't issued. They're earned, traded, or passed down. Your job is to help organize them. You start by sorting bundles of red string, believed to ward off accidents and snake bites. Then you catalog a collection of carved animal bones, fox, ibis, cat, each with tiny etchings of spells or prayers. Some are polished from years of handling, the edges worn smooth by calloused hands. You find one charm in particular that catches your eye, a tiny sandstone beetle, with a line of symbols carved underneath. A fellow helper whispers that it belonged to a man who died on the west ramp last month. It was recovered from his tunic. You gently place it in the return basket. Outside, Workers line up to receive charms for the week ahead. The woman offers them like blessings, selecting each item carefully, as though she knows what danger awaits them. And maybe she does. One man receives a small blue amulet shaped like an eye. The Eye of Horus, she explains. Protection against falling stones. Another gets a cord knotted 7 times. Luck for precision work. To your surprise, you're handed one too. A loop of dried papyrus with a drop of resin hardened at the knot. The woman tells you it's for balance. You ask, emotional? She smirks. Physical. It's tied around your wrist before you can protest. Later in the day, you help hang charms above the main entry to the workers' supply tent. Dried fish bones and braided straw in the shape of a serpent's tongue. A warning for thieves. Or maybe just a reminder that even a bag of onions can be sacred when you're hungry. You pause to consider a curious historical fact. Archaeological evidence shows workers at pyramid sites had personal belongings, combs, dice, amulets, even musical instruments. They weren't faceless slaves. They were people. People with backaches, jokes, and deeply irrational fears of cursed frogs. You pass a man sharpening his chisel with obsessive care. Tied around his neck is a knotted cord with a tiny tooth attached. Wolf, maybe. He sees you looking and says, "Kept my father alive 3 years. We'll see if it works on me." He smiles, but his eyes don't. Nearby, someone sneezes. Instantly, 3 workers touch their charms and whisper protective phrases. You get the sense that magic here isn't for fun, it's a language. One that keeps chaos away. And yet, not everything is about fear. Some charms are gifts. One older man gives a carved pebble to a boy too small to lift stones, telling him it brings growth. The boy wears it proudly, tucking it into his waistband like it's gold. Others are for love. You overhear a worker promising his charm to the woman who waits for him by the river every new moon. He says it still smells like her. As the sun lowers, the woman who runs the tent invites you to stay for the final part of the day, something called the charm fire. You expect something grand. It's not. She simply lights a small bowl of incense, places a few broken amulets inside, and lets the smoke rise. She mutters something about returning the items to the air. Stone cracks. Wood rots. Magic moves on. You watch the smoke twist upward into the orange sky. The workers around you fall quiet, letting the day fade with the scent of burned cedar and resin. Later, as you walk back to your mat, you check your own charm. Still there. Still pulsing faintly against your skin. Or maybe that's your wrist reminding you it's broken in at least 3 places. You settle down for the night. The pyramid watches from the distance, silent and huge. Tomorrow, someone else will fall. Someone else will rise. And somewhere, someone will tighten a charm around their neck and whisper to whatever gods still have time for pyramid workers. The sun rises like it always does, slow, merciless, and far too early. You sit up on your mat and wince. Your charm bracelet sticks slightly to your wrist, fused with dried sweat and the dust of a 100-foot ramp. You peel it off gently and retie the knot, a little tighter this time. Balance. Your legs are sore. Your back is worse. But your job today won't involve hauling or tallying. Instead, after a night of stomach cramps and heat chills, you're sent to the med tent. Not for healing, for observation. You're today's assistant. Lucky you? The medic, called Heka, greets you with a distracted grunt. He's thin, sharp-nosed, and always chewing something bitter. Probably myrrh or frankincense bark. His tent smells like boiled herbs, old blood, and vinegar. Inside are rows of rolled linens, pots of unidentifiable pastes, and a rack of sharpened flint blades that you hope are purely decorative. The first patient arrives limping, with a toe swollen to the size of a figure. Heka barely glances at it before soaking a cloth in a honey and clay mixture and pressing it against the toe. crushed under the sled. The man explains through gritted teeth. Heka hums. You wrap the bandage slowly, trying not to stare at the bruising. You fail. Honey, you recall, was one of ancient Egypt's go-to medical miracles, used for everything from wounds to embalming. And you know what? It kind of works. Modern science backs this up. Antibacterial, soothing, easy to apply. Also very sticky. Next, a boy with a nosebleed sits down. Heka pinches the bridge and hands you a strip of linen soaked in vinegar. Press gently. You do, but the boy sneezes and covers your tunic in red dots. Heka chuckles. You do not. The cases pile up, split nails, sand in the eyes, a badly burned hand from touching sun-heated copper. You realize quickly that heat stroke is the most common visitor. Pale lips. Dazed expressions. Skin that shouldn't feel cold but does. For those, Heka uses a mix of shaded rest, cool water, and a foul-smelling paste of crushed lotus leaves. He mutters spells under his breath as he works, just quiet enough that no one challenges him, but loud enough that they feel protected. One man is brought in unconscious, face white as limestone. He's laid on a reed mat while Heka checks his pulse, 2 fingers on the neck, eyes watching the ribs. Too far gone, he mutters. He'll wake or he won't. The man's co-workers form a circle around him. No wailing. No panic. Just quiet waiting. A woman gives him a small amulet and ties it to his belt. You want to ask what it means, but somehow, you already know. Outside, the sun climbs higher. Heka sends you to refill water skins from the shaded well near the animal pens. You pass a group of oxen being bathed with buckets of Nile water. One sneezes and sprays a worker head to toe. Everyone laughs. Even the ox seems pleased. Back in the tent, Heka teaches you how to make a poultice. You crush garlic and barley, add honey, and mix it into a paste. This, he says, is good for bites. You ask, snakes? He shakes his head. Women. You don't ask a follow-up. The quirky tidbit of the day? You learn that crocodile dung was once used as contraceptive paste. Not here, not now, but in the cities. A mix of ash, acacia, and dried reptile droppings, inserted with a smile and a prayer. You wonder how many of those women believed it worked. You wonder how many got very sick instead. Midday approaches. The med tent grows hotter. Heka opens the flap and fans in dry air. Better to sweat than rot, he says, which might be his motto. A new arrival appears, one of the overseers, grimacing and cradling his wrist. Not broken, but badly twisted. Heka treats him with even less kindness than usual. The body doesn't care about rank, he says while wrapping it. The overseer doesn't argue. You're told to fetch a salve from the storage shelf, a jar labeled with a hawk feather. You open it and immediately regret your choices. The smell is like roasted onions mixed with regret and mildew. It's fenugreek, Heka says. Good for swelling. Bad for social life. As the sun lowers, the tent empties. The unconscious man stirs. Not a full recovery, but enough to mutter something and sip a little beer. He'll live. Maybe. You help wash linens in a shallow basin filled with lemon water and sand. The friction scrubs away blood, sweat, and stories. You hang the strips on a line beside the tent. They flutter like flags, off-white, holy in their own way. And then Heka surprises you. He hands you a small clay jar and says, "Keep it. For burns. You'll need it eventually." You nod, unsure whether to feel grateful or worried. That evening, instead of returning to the main camp, you sit with Heka on a stone ledge, watching the sky go purple. He lights a bundle of dried herbs, letting the smoke rise slowly. "Do you ever get used to the pain?" you ask. "No," he replies. "But the pyramid does." You're not sure what that means. Maybe it's nonsense. Maybe it's the truest thing you've heard all week. You walk back under the starlight, jar in hand, charm on your wrist, salt in your skin. You lie down without a blanket, the breeze cool against your ribs. And somewhere in the distance, above the noise and smoke, the pyramid waits. Silent. Patient. Growing. You dream of staircases that never end. Each step is the same, stone, smooth, a little warm from the sun, but the top never gets closer. You wake before dawn again, blinking at the canvas ceiling of your tent, your mouth dry as papyrus. There's sand in your ears, in your sandals, and somehow, in your teeth. Today, your assignment takes you beneath the pyramid. Not metaphorically. Literally. Underground. You're sent with a small group down a steep passage carved into the limestone bedrock, just behind the western side of the monument. At first, it feels like you're entering a cave, but the steps are too precise. The ceiling is low, forcing you to hunch, and the air is different here. Cooler, yes, but thick with the scent of dust, resin, and something ancient. Not mold. Not rot. Just age. You descend deeper. Your guide is a stoneworker named Bach, whose tunic is stained with soot and ochre. He carries a small oil lamp and walks barefoot, sure-footed like he's done this 100 times. He probably has. Do not touch the walls, he says without turning. Some are cursed. Others are just dirty. You believe both. After a short crawl through a narrow tunnel, you emerge into a hollowed-out chamber, taller than expected and lined with smooth blocks. This isn't a natural cave, it's the tomb foundation. A structure beneath the structure. This is where he'll sleep, Bach says softly. He doesn't name the pharaoh. He doesn't need to. The assumption is absolute. This entire city of stone above your head is a ladder to the afterlife, and this chamber, is where the journey begins. You run your fingers across the nearest wall. It's cool and perfectly smooth. Not even a fingernail's gap between the blocks. Some have faint red markings, symbols, lines, sketches of what's to come. Guide marks, likely. Historians still argue whether these lower chambers were ceremonial, symbolic, or structural necessities. Some believe they were never intended to be seen after completion. You're standing in a forgotten blueprint, etched in stone. Bach hands you a brush. Your job? Clean. Not a glamorous task, but a strangely sacred one. You kneel beside a carved panel showing Anubis weighing a heart against a feather. Dust has collected in the grooves, dulling the outlines. You brush slowly, reverently, watching the symbols emerge like they're breathing again after centuries of silence. A fellow worker nearby mixes red and black pigment from crushed minerals and animal fat. With a fine reed pen, he begins tracing the outlines. It's not art. It's ceremony. The gods must recognize the signs when the time comes. You learn a quirky detail. Some tomb chambers contain false doors, carved to look like doorways but leading nowhere. They're not mistakes. They're spiritual entry points, meant for the Ka, the soul, to pass through. Ghost architecture. In the back corner of the chamber, another group chisels grooves into the floor for the eventual sarcophagus. The stone is resistant, dry, and loud. You plug your ears with cloth. At midday, a meal is brought: bread, garlic, dried fish. You eat in silence, seated beside a niche carved into the wall, perhaps once intended for a statue, now empty. You wonder what will go there. A god? A guardian? A royal pet? Bach answers before you can ask. A jar of blood, he says. Symbolic. We hope. You finish eating quickly. The next few hours are spent helping reinforce the roof beams with wooden braces. While the pyramid above is mostly stone, the lower chambers often use wood for scaffolding and stabilization, though termites make that an ongoing issue. You hammer a wedge between two planks and feel the ceiling shift slightly. You freeze. Bach calmly adjusts the support. Everything here is balanced. But not forever. The deeper chambers are unfinished. You're led through a tunnel still being shaped. Dust chokes the air, and the sound of chisels echoes like hammering inside a skull. It's cooler here, but the noise makes you sweat. You pause in a side passage, just wide enough for one man. The wall here is filled with doodles, handprints, animal sketches, even what looks like a dancing figure with a staff. Someone carved a tiny image of the pyramid itself, complete with ramps. It's not decoration. It's a message to the future. On the way out, Bach stops at a sealed doorway made of large limestone blocks. Behind here, he says, is the treasure room. You ask, what treasure? He smiles. Whatever he wants to take with him. He doesn't elaborate. Maybe because he doesn't know. Maybe because he does. Above ground, as you emerge into the blinding sun, everything feels louder, hotter, dumber. The workers hauling blocks don't know you've just stood where a pharaoh will one day rest forever. You carry that quiet with you like sand in your shoes. Back at the tent, you try to draw what you saw, on a scrap of bark with a piece of coal. The handprint, the dancing figure, the false door. You add a tiny pyramid and place it at the top. Then you tuck the scrap under your mat. No one needs to see it. Not yet. You fall asleep with the taste of underground still in your lungs, and a strange thought in your head. The pyramid isn't hollow. It's alive. By now, you no longer wake up wondering where you are. You just wonder which part of the pyramid you'll be assigned to today. This morning, the answer is the river. You're marched with a group of 15 workers down a dusty path lined with dry reeds and half-buried pottery shards. The sun's barely over the horizon, but it's already hot enough to toast flatbread on your shoulders. You squint toward the glimmer of blue in the distance, the Nile. The river is calmer than you expected. Wide. Slow. Almost pretending not to be the lifeline of an entire civilization. But the moment you arrive, the illusion breaks. The riverbank is chaos. Controlled chaos. But chaos all the same. Dozens of men wade thigh-deep through muddy shallows, guiding huge wooden rafts loaded with granite blocks. These stones didn't come from nearby quarries like the limestone did. No. These were hauled from Aswan, over 500 miles to the south. That's the fun fact of the day. Each granite block took weeks to arrive by boat. It's not just heavy, it's sacred. Used for internal chambers, ceilings, and anything requiring serious strength. Because when you want a ceiling to survive eternity, you don't gamble on soft stone. Today, you're assisting with the unloading. The raft you're assigned to is just arriving, its hull low in the water, barely clearing the surface. The granite block strapped atop it looks like it's contemplating murder. You watch the workers circle the raft, tossing ropes over pulleys, slapping the wood with flat paddles to coax it closer. The moment the raft bumps the muddy dock, the air changes. Everyone moves fast. Ropes tighten. Men dig their heels into the bank. One wrong move and the entire load could shift, and take half the crew into the river. You're handed a pole and told to brace the raft against the current. You do it badly. The raft drifts slightly. Someone shouts. You dig harder, feet slipping in wet clay. A moment later, a looped rope is dropped around the granite block, and the real effort begins. The block is coaxed off the raft using a combination of pull ropes, greased runners, and the unspoken hope that the laws of physics are feeling generous today. You're placed on a side crew, adjusting the rollers as the block moves. Each time it slides forward, you dash around to reposition the logs ahead. You do this with your full body, like you're herding a wild animal that weighs 10,000 pounds and hates you. Someone sings a hauling chant. Push with RA. Pull with MAT. You join in by accident, and then just keep going. It helps. Eventually, the block reaches dry ground. You all collapse. No applause. No celebration. just panting. A cup of water is passed. You drink like it's the Nile itself. Then another raft arrives. Of course it does. During a break, you're sent with a younger worker to retrieve supplies from the nearby depot, a cluster of tents where ropes are braided, sledges repaired, and grease is mixed from pig fat and desert herbs. The smell is powerful. While you wait, the boy points out a strange device, a curved wooden frame with ropes and pulleys. We call it the mouth of Sobek, he says. It eats blocks and spits them where we want. It's not actually a machine. Just a clever arrangement of leverage, but the name sticks in your mind. You realize that everything here has a name, a personality. Even the blocks. Especially the blocks. On your way back, you pass a raft that didn't survive. Half sunk, its cargo gone, its crew crouched on the bank like scolded dogs. The foreman paces in front of them, arms crossed. No shouting. Just silence and shame. Granite can't swim, someone mutters. Later that day, you're allowed to help tag the new blocks. It's not graffiti. It's a system. You dip a brush in red ochre and mark a symbol onto the stone's corner. A triangle inside a circle. That's the code for interior use, upper vault. Someone else adds a transport mark. Another tags the weight estimate. You've never written anything in your life that felt so heavy. The quirky detail of the day? You learn that some of these symbols, used to track the blocks, have never been seen by modern archaeologists. Why? Because they were erased. Smoothed over. Hidden by polished casing stones or sealed within the pyramid's inner heart. Invisible now, but you're the one holding the brush. Before you leave, you watch as another granite block is carefully angled onto a giant sled. It's not pulled yet. Just left there overnight. A team will arrive before dawn to begin its journey to the pyramid. As the sun sets, the river turns gold. Workers wade into the shallows to wash. Laughter ripples across the water. Someone dives, splashes rise, a fish is caught and held aloft like a trophy. You sit on the riverbank and rinse your arms, your face. The water stings your blisters, but it's a good sting. Nearby, two men sing a folk song, something about a girl who cursed a scribe with a look. You smile. Even here, even now, stories flow like the river. The walk back is long, but the coolness makes it easier. The sky fades from lavender to indigo. You hear frogs croaking. A crane glides overhead like a silent priest. Back at camp, you lie on your mat and stare upward. You can't see the pyramid from here, but you can feel it. Like it's pulling the stars down toward itself, one stone at a time. Tomorrow, that granite block will move. And you'll be there to help. Night slips by like a breeze over warm stone. When morning comes, it's not a beginning, it's a continuation. A seamless loop of dust, sweat, and weight. You wake already aching. Your palms have hardened into cracked leather. Your arms twitch when you sit up. You feel older than the pyramid itself. Today, you're assigned to a less physically intense, but more unsettling task. You're to assist in the chamber vault, the sacred corridor deep inside the structure, not yet sealed. It's where only trusted workers are allowed, and even then, only briefly. You don't know what you've done to be trusted, but no one argues when you're handed a small oil lamp and told to follow the priest. Yes, a priest. He's thin, silent, and wears a leopard skin draped over his linen tunic, a symbol of his role in ritual purification. Around his neck hangs a small gold scarab. His face is painted not with decoration, but meaning. His eyes never look directly at you. You descend through a narrow shaft carved straight into the pyramid's heart. The walls are angled just slightly, making you feel like you're slipping downward, even when you're still. The air here is different, cool, yes, but dry to the point of stillness. It's like the pyramid holds its breath. You reach the chamber. And it's empty. Mostly. A large granite sarcophagus sits in the center, carved from a single block, its edges sharp, its surface engraved with lines that seem to shift when the lamplight moves. Not words. Not images. Just intention. This is not a room for the living. This is a container for eternity. Your task is simple: help prepare it. That sounds vague. It is. You spend the first hour dusting with a cloth made from woven flax. Not because it's dirty, but because tradition demands cleanliness, even the illusion of it. Then, you're given a small bowl of scented oil, myrrh, you think, and a bundle of thin reeds to brush it along the carved seams of the sarcophagus. To awaken the stone, the priest says. You don't ask what that means. Every movement feels exaggerated in the silence. Every drip of oil echoes. You're acutely aware that if you trip and touch the wrong thing, you might become part of the pyramid's secret history. On the northern wall, there's a relief niche, a shallow shelf. You help place a set of carved figures there, a falcon, a serpent, and a man with no face. The priest explains. Protection. Vision. Memory. You pretend to understand. Then comes the whisper. It's not a sound. Not really. Just a shift in the air that makes the flame on your lamp shiver. You freeze. So does the priest. He holds up a hand, not for danger, but for silence. Somewhere above, a stone shifts. A block being moved? Maybe. But it sounds too deep. Historians still argue whether the inner chambers of pyramids were built acoustically, designed to amplify sound, to carry ritual chants, or even serve as resonance chambers. Standing here, you believe it. The stone sings. Low, ancient, and without melody. The priest begins to hum. It's not a tune. It's a vibration. You feel it more than hear it. A humming resonance that matches the faint groan of stone above. You stand there in that echoing space, oil in your hands, dust in your throat, and feel something pass through you, not fear. Not faith. Just presence. Time does something strange. You don't know how long you stay in the chamber. It could be minutes. It could be hours. When you finally emerge, blinking into the daylight, your legs shake like you've climbed 100 stairs. Back outside, the world is loud again. The wind. The clatter of sledges. The bark of foremen. All of it feels sharper, more alive than before. You're sent to rest. Apparently chamber duty earns you an afternoon off. But you're not really sure what to do with it. You wander. Along the western edge of the site, you pass the sandmen, workers tasked with leveling the ground using weighted sleds pulled back and forth across the earth. One waves. You wave back. You find yourself at the edge of the artisans' quarter, where sculptors and painters work on statues for nearby tombs. Here, stone is not burden. It's beauty. One man chisels the curve of a cheekbone into a bust of the pharaoh's mother. His tool is barely the size of your finger, but the precision is unreal. A few women are polishing alabaster bowls with goat leather and powdered sand. They hum a song with no words. You help move a crate of pigment jars, ground from minerals like malachite, hematite, and lapis lazuli. Each color has a purpose. Each symbol, a destination. Someone paints the shin, ring, a symbol of eternity, around the ankle of a small statue. The irony is not lost on you. Feet that will never move, walking forever. You sit in the shade and drink weak beer from a clay cup, watching the sky shift from blinding white to golden haze. The quirky tidbit today? A painter tells you that the color green, symbolizing life and rebirth, is considered protective. So much so that some workers smear green paste on their tools, hoping they'll live longer. You consider asking for some, just in case. As the sun dips, you return to camp. Your fellow workers joke about ghosts in the walls. One swears he heard footsteps in a sealed corridor. Another says he saw a shadow pass behind a block. No one questions it. The pyramid isn't just stone. It's a personality, a mood, a presence. And tonight, it feels like it's watching you back. You lie on your mat, unable to sleep. In your mind, you trace the edge of the sarcophagus again. Smooth. Cold. Waiting. You imagine the pharaoh's body being carried down into that room. You imagine the door sealing behind it. And you wonder quietly whether anyone ever walks out again. The morning begins with music. Not the kind with lyres and dancers. Not today. It's the raw, percussive music of hammers striking chisels, of men shouting rhythmically as they pull ropes, of sledges creaking against wooden rollers. It's the chorus of labor, and you're once again in the middle of the song. But today, the mood is different. The pyramid is quiet. Not silent, just muted, like it's holding its breath. You soon find out why. It's feast day. Not a national holiday, not a rest for all, but one of those rare pauses in the calendar when the gods demand attention. A festival for the laborers, the scribes say. A gesture of balance. And if you're lucky enough not to be scheduled for urgent hauling duty, you get something that barely exists in this timeline: free time. You didn't think joy could survive in a place where people regularly bleed on limestone, but here it is. The day begins with a procession. Workers from various crews line up, each carrying an offering. Not gold or fine linens, those are for the gods. These offerings are more practical: baskets of dates, loaves of bread with decorative scorched symbols, fish tied together in pairs, and even the occasional jar of beer with a flower tucked into the lid. You're handed a loaf shaped like an ankh. Symbolic. Dense. Slightly burnt. You eat it anyway. The offerings are placed before a small altar built from scrap stone, nothing fancy. A priest chants a blessing in the name of Ta and Hathor, gods of creation and music. He waves burning papyrus and resin until the smoke curls like a snake up into the morning sky. Then the real celebration begins. First come the games. You're invited to join a team for a pulling contest. 2 teams on opposite ends of a thick rope, trying to drag each other across a line drawn in the sand. You join. You regret it. Your arms protest. Your back says rude things. Your knees wobble like jelly in an earthquake. But your side wins, mostly because one man on the other team falls and takes 3 with him. There is no prize except laughter, and that feels like gold. Then there's racing. Not across the ground, but up the ramp. Yes. The same ramp you've spent days cursing. A group of younger workers challenge each other to sprint halfway up and back down without falling or vomiting. You watch from the bottom, cheering half-heartedly. One man slips, rolls dramatically, and lands in a pile of sand with a grin. "Still alive!" he shouts. A foreman nearby scowls. Then chuckles. Then walks away. Later, you're pulled into a dice game, tiny carved bones tossed into a shallow bowl. You don't know the rules, but that doesn't stop anyone from betting. The stakes are absurd: a threadbare sandal, half a fig, someone's lucky rock. You win a peeled onion and immediately trade it for a nap under a shady cloth. That nap may be the greatest moment of your life. Around midday, food is passed out, real food, not just worker rations. Someone roasted goat. There are flatbreads stuffed with beans and herbs. You even get a handful of figs, which are sweet enough to make you tear up. Or maybe it's just the wind. The quirky detail of the day? You learn that fig seeds were sometimes used to divine omens, cracked open and interpreted by priests like tiny, edible prophecies. You chew carefully. You don't need a bad forecast today. Musicians appear as the sun begins to dip. A reed flute. A hand drum. A girl with a necklace of tiny bells. They don't perform, they invite. People sing along, clap, stomp. Someone improvises a song about a stone block that refused to fit and had to be convinced with kindness and 4 hammers. You dance. Badly, No one cares. As the music builds, a man in a crude jackal mask leaps into the circle and starts mimicking the overseers, wagging his finger, swinging an imaginary whip, tripping over his own sandals. The crowd howls. Even a priest nearby pretends not to notice. Someone starts a chant circle, an impromptu game where workers shout lines in rhythm, each person adding a verse. It's part comedy, part therapy. You catch verses like, "I kissed a block and now I limp. My charm fell off, I blame that figure. My beer's too warm but I drank it anyway." Your verse? A simple, honest one. "My arms are dust and still I dance." It gets a cheer. And then silence. Just like that, the music stops. The crowd parts. The capstone arrives. Not the real one, not yet. This is a ceremonial replica, carved from wood, painted gold, carried in on the shoulders of 6 honored workers. They don't stumble. They don't speak. They place it carefully on a stone pedestal before the altar. The priest returns and speaks of completion, of balance, of how every hand has shaped the sun's resting place. You realize that's what the pyramid is, in their eyes, not just a tomb, but a sky ladder. A monument not just to kings, but to the world's ability to rise. The ceremony ends quietly. No trumpets. No declarations. The wooden capstone is left on the pedestal as the crowd disperses. A few workers stop to press their palms against it. Some whisper prayers. One man simply lays his forehead against it and breathes. You don't touch it. But you do stand there a long time, watching the last rays of sunlight reflect off the painted surface. It's warm. Like it's listening. That night, back at camp, there's no hard labor. No chores. Just campfires, and music, and staring up at the stars with a belly that isn't empty for once. You fall asleep with the sound of laughter still in the air. And for the first time since you arrived, you dream of something other than stone. The day begins with shouting. Not the regular kind, the "move faster, pull harder, don't drop that" shouting. This is different. Sharper. Urgent. You stumble from your mat, blinking into the morning haze. A crowd is already forming near the southern edge of the pyramid, just below one of the upper ramps. Dust hangs in the air like smoke. Something's gone wrong. You push your way forward and see it immediately. A section of scaffolding, high up, perhaps 5 or 6 levels above, has collapsed. Wooden beams snapped. Ropes frayed. A half-finished ramp section now lies in a heap, like a pile of broken bones. A block has slipped, shifted, not fallen, but listing just enough to be a threat. No one speaks at first. Even the overseers are quiet. Then the murmuring begins. Bad omen. Not enough offerings. The gods are angry. You glance around. Many workers are clutching their charms. Some drop to one knee. Others turn away completely, not daring to look directly at the wreckage. You're called to help with the recovery crew. Not because you're qualified, but because you're standing close enough. You climb carefully, roped in with others, toward the damaged level. The dust is still settling. The air is tense, thick with the smell of splintered wood and stone dust. You pass blood on the ramp, just a smear. Someone's already taken the injured away. When you reach the break, you see the problem. A support beam snapped near the center, possibly due to rot or stress. It buckled, dragging 2 others with it. Fortunately, no one was under the heaviest pieces. But 2 men did fall, one with a broken ankle, the other with cracked ribs. They'll live, but they won't work again anytime soon. Your job is to clear the wreckage and rebuild. You and the others begin lifting what's salvageable, ropes, planks, bolts, and tossing the rest down into a designated pile. There's no ceremony. No speeches. Just the scrape of wood, the tug of rope, and the sting of guilt in the air. While you're working, a strange thought creeps into your head. The pyramid is fighting back. You push it away. But then one of the older workers says it out loud. She's tired. She, meaning the pyramid. Others nod. They don't elaborate. It's not superstition. It's respect. You're building a structure so massive, so perfect, that it begins to feel sentient. And today, it flinched. A priest arrives an hour later, flanked by 2 boys carrying incense and a copper bowl. He surveys the damage, sprinkles natron salt, and offers a prayer. You don't understand all of it, but the tone is clear. Calm her down. Remind her that the builders still believe. Still bow. Still bleed. The priest places a clay offering, bread and a small carved ox, into a niche in the wall. Then he turns and leaves. No one dares question whether that's enough. Work resumes. You help lash new beams into place, hammer wedges to stabilize the angle, and anchor the ropes tighter than before. Everything takes twice as long today. No one wants to be blamed for another collapse. At one point, a young worker freezes mid-hammer strike. He's staring at the wall beside him. There was a mark, he whispers. Now it's gone. He swears there was a painted symbol, a charm of protection, on the beam that broke. It's no longer visible. Some laugh it off. Others just go quiet. The afternoon is thick with tension. You catch yourself watching the beams above your head more than the work in front of you. The pyramid has always been heavy. Today, it feels personal. During a break, you sit in the shade of a partially finished level. A man beside you chews dried lotus root and tells a story. There was a man, he says, who dropped a block. Just a small one. It cracked. The foreman beat him, but that night the man left a loaf of bread at the base of the pyramid. Next morning, the crack was gone. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Stone is like people. Feed it, and it might forgive you. You filed that one away under fringe historical practices. A quirky fact, though? Archaeologists have found food buried at construction sites. Bread, fish bones, even beer jars sealed and untouched. Most think it was for workers. But maybe it was for the stone. By sunset, the scaffolding is rebuilt. Tighter. Thicker. With an extra support beam. Just in case. You double-check every rope you tie, and you're not the only one. As the final rays of sun gild the highest corner of the pyramid, someone lights a torch at the top. It's not tradition. It's instinct. A small flame, like an apology. Back at camp, the mood is subdued. No singing. No dice games. Just quiet meals and lingering glances. You hear whispers in the dark. We should pause. It's too fast. She warned us. But there's no pause coming. Pharaoh's spirit must rise. The stone must rise with it. Delay is insult. You lie awake longer than usual, tracing the day's events in your mind. You think of the smear of blood, the broken beam, the missing symbol, the crack that maybe healed itself. You think of the pyramid, rising higher, growing heavier, drawing breath like it means something. And you wonder, for the first time, are we building her? Or is she building us? You don't wake up. You rise slowly, as if pulled by ropes. Everything hurts. The mat under you feels like a suggestion of rest, not the real thing. You can't tell if it's day or night until the flap of your tent opens and a blade of golden light cuts through the gloom. Someone outside calls your name. You don't remember ever giving it to them, but it's yours now. You're not going to haul, or carve, or count, or climb today. You've been selected for a special task, witnessing the capstone. Not the painted wooden replica from the feast. The real one. The pyramidion, a four-sided golden stone, polished and shaped like the sun itself. Rumor has it the pharaoh personally blessed it. Or the priests did. Or both. Depends who you ask. Either way, it's ready. And it's moving today. Your heart jumps at the thought. It's not fear, it's a strange sort of awe. You've been sweating through this project for weeks. Maybe longer. Time blurs. But this is the moment. The moment it all becomes real. You're marched with a select group, workers, overseers, priests, scribes, toward the staging ramp. It's different today. Quiet. No shouting. No chants. Just the groan of ropes and the creak of the reinforced sled carrying the golden cap. The stone is small compared to the blocks you've been hauling. Maybe 4 feet tall. But it glows in the sun like it's alive. It's been polished with desert sand, oil, and crushed gemstones. It hurts to look at. You look anyway. You're positioned on the upper levels, not too close to the summit, but close enough to see it all unfold. Above you, the final platform of the pyramid has been cleared. Workers wait, hands on ropes, breath held. The climb begins. The capstone is pulled slowly, painfully slowly, up the final slope. Each step is calculated. The ropes are doubled. The workers are rested. Every movement is watched by 2 priests and a man holding what looks like a ceremonial fly whisk, which feels wildly insufficient for the occasion. As the capstone rises, the sun does too, catching its angles. The pyramid becomes a mirror. You feel heat in your chest. Or maybe pride. You remember a historical fact you once heard. The ancient Egyptians called the capstone the Benben, named after the primeval mound that rose from the waters of chaos. This wasn't just the end of a project, it was the rebirth of the world, every time the block reaches the top. You hold your breath. For workers, wearing fresh linen, guided into place using ropes, wedges, and whispered prayers. The moment the point touches down, a ripple of sound travels down the pyramid. Not shouting. Not cheering. Just a long, low hum, hundreds of men humming in unison. You join without thinking. It's not a tradition you were told about. It's just happening. The priests raise their arms. A scribe begins writing furiously on a scroll. Someone releases a white bird. It circles once and vanishes into the desert sky. And just like that, it's done. The pyramid is complete. You expect celebration. Fireworks. Dancing. Instead, there's silence. Weighty, sacred silence. The pyramid no longer looks like a construction site. It looks eternal. You're allowed a short break after the ceremony. No one says much. You sit on a block halfway down the ramp, drinking warm beer and chewing old bread. But everything tastes different now. The sweat in your mouth, the dust in your teeth, it all feels like payment for something worth building. Then you're called for final inspection. Not of the pyramid, but of the workers. A line forms near the southern wall. Scribes record names, wounds, transfers. Some are reassigned to other royal projects. Some return to their villages. A few choose to stay near the pyramid, guarding the tomb even after the burial. A priest quietly blesses each man as he steps forward. When your turn comes, he touches your wrist. Your charm is still there. He nods. Balance held, he says. As you move aside, you notice one of the overseers placing a small stone at the base of the southern face. Just a pebble. Nothing fancy. You ask why. It's tradition, he says. The pyramid remembers everyone. Even the nameless. That hits harder than it should. You wander the perimeter as dusk falls. The pyramid glows in the fading light. Not literally, but your eyes lie to you. It looks like it's exhaling, finally. The scaffolding is gone. The ropes are coiled. The ramps will soon be dismantled. What remains is stone and story. The quirky fact of the day? There's a theory that the entire surface was once covered in white Tura limestone, polished so brightly that it shone like a star. Some say it could be seen from miles away. A beacon. A warning. A promise. You don't know if that's true. But it feels true. You spend the evening packing. You're told your service is done. You can return home. Or move on to the next project. Or do nothing at all. That freedom feels heavier than a granite block. Some men dance around a fire. Others weep quietly. You do neither. Instead, you walk once more around the base of the pyramid. You find a loose stone near the bottom edge. You pick it up. You place it gently beside the overseer's pebble. No name. No mark. Just a memory, pressed into place. As the stars rise over the desert, you lie down on your mat for the final time. The capstone gleams faintly above you. And somewhere deep inside that mountain of silence, a pharaoh waits to be remembered. You wake in silence. Not the usual silence before the shouting starts, not the half-silence filled with the clatter of sandals and the creak of ropes. This is a different kind of silence. The kind that follows endings. The camp is nearly empty. Not abandoned, just quiet, like a stage after the final act. The tents still flutter in the morning breeze. A few fires still smolder, releasing lazy coils of smoke into the pale air. But most of the workers are gone, reassigned to new sites or already walking the long road back to their home villages. You're one of the last. You pack your things, not that you have many. Your kilt, still stained with dust and oil. A chipped water jug. The small clay jar of burned salve Heka gave you. And the charm still tied around your wrist, now faded and fraying, but still there. You fold your mat. You stand. And you walk. There's one last thing you want to see before you leave. The northern face of the pyramid. You've seen all sides by now. You've hauled stone from every direction, pulled ropes across every ramp, eaten lunch in the shadow of every corner. But the northern face is different. It's where the entrance lies, now sealed. The door closed with massive blocks, invisible to anyone who doesn't already know it's there. The tomb inside is complete. You know what's behind those stones, chambers, corridors, the polished granite box beneath the central vault. You helped prepare it. You helped clean it. You helped carry the oil and the pigment and the offerings. And now it's buried. Somewhere inside, the pharaoh lies in state. Maybe not yet. Maybe only ceremonially for now. But soon, if not already, he'll be laid within his stone coffin, surrounded by treasure and texts and silence. The stone will never move again. You sit at the base of the northern ramp, now disassembled, its wooden bones pulled away like a healing scab, and you look up. The pyramid stretches into the sky with no apology. Its angles are perfect. Its surface blinding in the rising sun. The golden capstone catches the light and flings it back into the heavens, as if daring the gods to blink. This is the moment you realize something. You're not the same person who woke up here weeks, or was it months, ago. Back then, you were confused. Weak. Modern. Now your hands are scarred. Your feet are calloused. Your shoulders carry more than weight. They carry shape. They carry symmetry. You didn't just build a pyramid. The pyramid built you. As you stand, preparing to leave, a young scribe approaches with a tablet. He looks at you, squints, and asks your name. You pause. Then you say it. Not the one you were born with, but the one this place has carved into you like a chisel in limestone. The scribe nods and scratches it into the tablet. He doesn't smile. He just moves on. And somehow, that's better. You take one final walk around the base. You pass the place where you once hauled blocks until your knees gave out. You pass the entrance to the shaft that led you underground, where you brushed dust from Anubis's face. You pass the ledge where you helped paint the symbols on the vault walls. And you pass the pedestal where the wooden replica of the capstone once stood, now gone, but not forgotten. Each spot feels like a scar you're proud of. Each moment, a stone you helped lift. As you walk away from the site, the pyramid never seems to shrink behind you. It follows you with its shadow, with its silence, with its refusal to be unseen. Somewhere in the wind, you swear you hear the hum again. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's the stone breathing. Maybe it's just your heartbeat, now in rhythm with the greatest monument ever built by hands like yours. You keep walking. You don't look back. You don't need to. She's there. Always. And now, as the desert wind softens and the pyramid fades behind your closed eyes, you feel the weight leave your shoulders, not all at once, but gently. Like a rope being uncoiled. Like the final wedge easing into place. You've been to the summit. You've seen the vaults. You've touched the stone warmed by 3,000 years of sunlight. Now it's time to rest. Breathe in, slow and deep, as though the air itself is laced with the scent of honey and myrrh. Let it fill your chest, heavy and warm. Let it settle behind your ribs, where the memories of the workers still whisper. Exhale. Slowly. Like sand slipping between your fingers. There is no more pulling. No more counting. No more chanting. The scaffolds are gone. The tools are put away. The pyramid is finished. And so are you. As you drift now, picture the golden capstone, polished, silent, still catching the sun long after the world has gone quiet. Let that image float behind your eyelids. Let it rest above you like a guardian. And if your dreams bring you back to the pyramid, that's all right. Let them. After all, you helped build it. Stone by stone. Step by step. Breath by breath. Sleep now. You've earned it. Sweet dreams.